talked about being a little bit concerned going into this last week before the first bye, and just is fatigue an issue? And the second part of that question is, going back to last season and this season, you're seeing things where a lot of teachable moments to fix on film, but finding ways to win so many games. How do you balance those two things, being proud of where you're at, but also knowing you've got so much to chip away at to be great?
Yeah, I think that's where you talk about those things really all year round. This isn't just because there's a win or a loss in the win column, in my opinion. I think these are the things that we knew would be great challenges for this particular season. I think these are things we have addressed and really kind of tried to pound away at since January. And so, I think the positive for us is we felt like we would be in some of these areas. We knew the physical and mental challenges that would come with, in my mind, this is really we're in the second quarter of our football season, as we looked at our calendar and, what would that look like, both physically and mentally, and what would the challenges be with last week, what would the challenges be with this week, and not even just from a opponent situation, more so internally, and I think you can do all the research you want, but the reality of fatigue and both mental and physical, I think, has paralyzed everybody in Ireland. And the reality of it is, I think even what we've been able to do so far probably would be a little bit a notch ahead of maybe what some of those other teams have been able to do. And I think that's the challenge this week. Can we not, great teams, and I said this Saturday, great teams get better. And the thing that can cause you not to get better is either you think you've arrived, and that's ego and entitlement, or there's physical fatigue that you're not tough enough, or the character to work through that. And all those things will be tested with our football program right now.
And a second two-parter is because you did the deep dives with the sleep special, did all the things you could possibly do to prepare for that game and the aftermath. A, is one of the things that there can be residual effects, and B, then going and playing 100-degree weather on Saturday too.
Yeah, I think for all those things are real, and all those things are obviously would be an excuse if we didn't get better this week. And so I think understanding that, talking through those things and addressing it, and then you have a choice. Do you do what you need to do? I mean, it's going to be hot everywhere, not just in Jonesboro, right? I mean, so the reality of it is, I think the last scrimmage we had, it was, at 4 o'clock and 107-degree feels like temperature, and we had 124 reps. So, we've been there, we've had this, we've prepared for this, and the reality of it is, we also know what it takes, physically to prepare yourself to do that. So, I think that's a thing, and then obviously, our ability to understand the urgency that it takes to get better, and knowing that you're asking 18 to 22-year-olds to continue that course. And so I think there's obviously great challenges in front of it, but I also think we've got great leadership and young men that understand what those challenges look like, and hopefully they've already addressed and had the ability to address, what are the proper steps that we need to do to ensure that we grow this week.
Brett Eskilton showed some flashes of promise at the end of last season. How has he impressed you the most since then?
Honestly, the most impressive part of Brett was spring ball and fall camp. You guys are seeing the product of what he did and what he's done. I mean, to me, Brett was a wow figure coming out of spring ball. He had an incredible spring. Probably would have been, as good as I've seen, in a long time around here. And then what he did was double down with that in fall camp. And I just thought, his consistency, I think he has very similar mannerisms to the great receivers that we've had here, the Knowles, the Higgins, the Hutchens, how he practices, how he prepares, his availability. I think just the consistency that he plays the game with has been really impressive. And for him to come in with that, I mean, for a guy like Brett to be able to have such meaningful, critical reps last year, he was a lead on special teams for us last year. I think it was him and Darian as the gunners for, the majority of the time, last season. And he just earned trust really fast with how he prepared. And then it was like, whoa, it's like he's morphed into this, what I would say really trusted football player within our football program, but his process of preparation is really what's elevated him.
And going back to the earlier point about preparation for Ireland and handling that. Do you address K-State struggles with your team? Like, does that ever come up as like a cautionary tale for, hey, we need to stick to our plan and how we did it?
No, I think every other team that's played in Ireland is cautionary tale enough. Nobody's done it. Nobody's had success. So the reality of this is what it's looked like, and there's great programs and great teams that have been able to have played in the game and had the opportunity to have success, but they didn't. And so I think the honesty is, hey, this is what we've signed up to do. This is the challenge at hand, and how are we going to try to conquer this collectively? Because we're all going to have to be able to do it really well.
Matt, what have you told your players about the opportunity that Arkansas State has this year?
Well, I don't. The nice thing is we have so many players that we played in these games and failed. And to be honest with you, like the reality of it is the respect first and foremost for Arkansas State. I mean, this will be the best quarterback, in my opinion, that from a mobility, throw ability, playmaking ability standpoint that we're going to play. He's got all the tools, and we saw that last year against him here, and we've seen what he was able to do post our game a year ago. And then you got Butch Jones, who's been phenomenal culture builder, team builder. Cincinnati, Tennessee, what he did last year with that Arkansas State team, and man, they've got great skill. And so on both sides of the ball, the video helps you. Our experiences of our past failures help you. And then the reality of it is, man, it's game 4. And there's a lot on that videotape from Saturday that we didn't do well, that we need to do better if we want to be the team we want to be. So I think collectively, we've got a lot of videotape evidence to help ourselves grow forward.
Matt, I thought the wide receiver subbing was really interesting at the end of the game, because you've seen Xavier he popped against South Dakota. Chase had the 2 catches late in this one. Are they coming around? Like, are you seeing more? Are you trusting those guys more now that they've had the reps?
Yeah, and I think it'll only continue to grow. I think, Chris, I think I said earlier, maybe before the season started, I think that you're not going to know that room until midway through the season. And there's a lot of talent. A lot of those guys were dinged up for fall camp. Brett was probably the only mainstay that practiced all through fall camp. And the rest of those guys, it was really hard for us. I was really concerned early in the season just because, those guys didn't have the reps with Rocco. The positive is, going into K-State, we were able to at least get those guys back on the practice field. And then I just think it's going to be a growth experience, let alone playing in game environment, but those practice reps are critical. And so I just think time is what we need to continue to pound away at it. But what's been fun is you feel like every game somebody different has stepped up, and Brett's kind of been the mainstay for the last 3 weeks for us. So excited to see what that room will continue to evolve into. We think it's really talented, maybe collectively as talented top to bottom as maybe what we've had. And there's still some young guys down there that haven't even got their opportunity yet that we think got superstar potential. So it's going to be fun to watch that group go. But man, there's only one football, and there's some pretty good tight ends, and there's some pretty good wide receiver or running backs, and a pretty darn good O-line. So it's just going to have to be, man, who makes the most of their opportunity every Saturday for us.
Matt, you bring in Jalen Travis last year from Princeton. This year it's Tomato and McDonough from Yale. What is it about Ivy League guys that your staff has identified to be good fits for the program? Is there something in particular that you just like about Ivy League guys?
No, I like guys that are smarter than all of us, so that helps first and foremost. But I just think from my end, both of these young men have very similar traits. They're number one, mature. They've challenged themselves and had great playing careers. Both of them played a ton of football. Yale has had a tremendous program as well and understands what it means to play championship level football. So I think Thomas got a little bit of that as well to his pedigree when the recruiting process came. And then, I just think from the collective character piece of it, the work ethic, I've said this about Tom, and really it was the same with Jalen. Every single day that those guys were here, those guys, you can just visibly see them getting better. And Tama has been the same way, and the hard part is you gotta wait till May, until they graduate, and that was kind of both of their situations. You don't get them for spring ball. So you kind of feel like it's a slow boil as those guys slowly kind of get their footing, and then once they have some confidence, boy, they can really go. And I think Tom was in that boat, and I thought was exceptional on Saturday. And I only think he'll get better. I think he's got all the physical traits and the physical tools to be really, really special for this football team. And obviously, we're really grateful that we have him here.
What's the backstory of the tight end pop pass play where the quarterback has the option to keep it?
Yeah, well, the backstory would be I had to play high school football in the wing tee, right? And I had to play tight end, and I was always praying that we would pass the ball someday. And someday I was wishing that I would get more than 10 catches in a season, you know? And one of the go-to pass plays in the wing tee is the tight end pop pass. So we've got them. We've got a million of them, from the dumps to the pop passes, and I probably nobody's thrown more of those in college football over the last 10 years than us. So just been a foundation of who we are offensively, and you go back to your roots a little bit, wing tee, pop passes. So that's the foundation of that play.
Is that a fun part of being a college football coach where you could say, hey, like, I always wanted to do this in high school and now I get to do it in the Big 12?
Yeah, it's exactly right. It is fun for us. You know, between me and Mouse, I think nobody loves to get the ball more to those guys and try to find ways to be creative with it. But, you know, I mean, boy, that play, and I probably didn't realize how unbelievable the catch was until watching the videotape afterwards. But I mean, it play design, great. Honestly, the play Gabe makes on it is exceptional. The tip ball play is great, but that play is incredible. I mean, it's his left hand, he spins around, and just a big time play. And Gabe's kind of made so many of those plays for our football team this fall already, playing at a really special level for us.
I think when this game against Arkansas State was scheduled, college football was probably in a different spot in terms of playoff access, financial realities. You guys go to Bowling Green in a couple of years. What are your thoughts on these group of 5 road games and how it fits into the larger picture of what you guys do, both on the field and financially, I guess?
Yeah, it's probably really hard for me to answer that. You know, it's probably a better Jamie question than mine. You know, I don't really have any say in scheduling. The only time I've ever been asked anything on scheduling was Ireland. So, you know, those we play the schedule that's given to us, and you know, you get 12 guaranteed opportunities, and no matter where you go or who you play, that's kind of what's in front of you. And I think that the fun thing about being a college coach is, what's that challenge look like, seeing it before the season starts, and then trying to put the best plan together to be able to be as successful as you can be with the challenge at hand.
Coach, we ask a lot about former players having success in the NFL. I don't think we've asked about Alex Golish and his success so far this season at USF. Well, how cool is it for you to see what he's done so far?
Yeah, you know, really neat. I think a really cool weekend last weekend, just in terms of Jason Campbell becomes the winningest coach at Toledo last weekend, which was really awesome. I mean, Jason and I started at Toledo, you know, really that whole group, Alex, myself, Jason, you know, were the first staff at Toledo back whenever we started there. And to see him have the success that he's had and sustained it, and obviously what Alex is building right now in South Florida, you know, you're really excited for those guys. And those guys would tell you they've had great mentors along the way. It was just cool that we were able to be at the same place at the same time. Those guys have all had great effects on me, and it's awesome to watch what those guys are doing, and certainly you know what those guys are about and what they stand for. So fired up for those guys.
A season ago, I think Marcus Neal and Brett Eskelton were the only 2 freshmen that avoided a redshirt for you. What's the challenge of a true freshman being able to do that, and then as a sophomore be able to impact both offense and defense the way that they have?
Yeah, you know, I think what you hope is, the one nice thing is if you earn the right as a freshman, especially if your team is good and playing good football, boy, you gotta be really talented as a freshman to be able to get on the field and impact winning. And those 2 guys were able to do that. And, you know, obviously both of those players started on special teams, and then, you know, as the season kind of progressed last year, their role elevated to offense and defense. And you know, I think what you hope that gives you is confidence. And, you know, I always say every year, everybody wants to know what's your team gonna be like, and I always respond, you have no idea until you play under the lights and until you get game reps and game experience. And, you know, I think what both those guys did is use their game experience last year to give them great confidence to go into the off season. I think what those guys both, and just like I talked about Brett, like Marcus Neal, if you come to practice, man, it is like, that guy is a wrecking. He can wreck practice, you know, just because he plays at one speed and he plays with such great consistency. He loves football, and you know, again, I think what he had is those traits early to come in and be really a consistent practicer, which got him on the field early. And then he gained the confidence last year to really help this football team. I think he playing in a perfect role, got the reps obviously in the bowl game, and then, you know, really doubled down and had a great spring and great fall camp. So not only did those guys get experience, but then they used it and they went to work in the offseason to really prepare themselves to have elevated roles on our football team.
Matt, just a little health status check, Aiden Flora, Willick, Laura, how are they, and just in general, how are you from an injury/illness standpoint?
Yeah, I think we're doing probably as good, at least at this point in the season, as we've been. I think Trev's probably got a real chance to play Saturday, which is really good. I'd say Aiden and Carson probably are both questionable right now, but I think Trev, we feel really confident that he's got a chance to be back, you know, at least in a limited role, maybe a full-time role. We'll see what that looks like this weekend, but yeah, I feel really good about at least where our football team is right now compared to, you know, where we've been at times.
And I think Brazino didn't play much.
He didn't down in the second half of the game. He got dinged up right before half, and you know, we just kind of made the decision that it was probably not in his best interest. But he'll be ready to go this weekend. Yep.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.